sounded forth a trumpet that shall never sound retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on.
In 1773, Britain's East India Company, which had an official monopoly on trade with the Far East, was on the verge of being bankrupt and had a large stack of tea that they couldn't sell in England. The Tea Act of 1773 gave the company the rights to export merchandise directly to the colonies without having to pay the navigation taxes. The East India Company could undersell and monopolize the colony's tea trade. The colonists boycotted their tea and made sure that their tea ships did not make it to their harbors. However, in Boston, they failed to stop 3 ships from getting to theirs. On the evening of December 16, 1773, 3 companies of 50 men each, masquerading as Mohawks, passed through a tremendous crowd of spectators, went aboard 3 ships, broke open their tea chests, and heaved them into the harbor. As the electrifying news of the Boston Tea Party, quotations on Tea Party, spread, other seaports followed their example and staged similar acts of resistance.
A long war then we fought and won, the British were defeated, and Yankee Doodle was the march to which their troops retreated. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy, mind the music and with the girl be handy.
Because of the Boston Tea Party, the British government punished Boston by establishing the Course of Acts, which included the closing of the Boston harbor. General Thomas Gage became the new governor of Massachusetts. He ordered a mission to remove gunpowder from an ammo storehouse. Although successful, he ended up creating the powder alarm. Soon other colonies began their own tea parties. The Course of Acts were meant to make an example out of Massachusetts and reverse the colonial resistance. It included the closing of the Boston Harbor, the Quartering Act, the Massachusetts Governor Act, Administration of Justice Act, and the Quebec Act. Because of the Boston Blockade, half of the people in Boston went jobless. Fishermen were not allowed to fish, merchants couldn't sell goods, as Boston was dependent on sea trade. On top of that all, they had to feed and supply the troops. The following interviews are about Jack Johnson and John Jackson, a merchant and a fisherman, both telling their sides of the story. Okay, so here we have Jack Johnson, the situation, and he's here to tell us how life is.
Say my name. My name is just Jack Johnson. I don't know where you got the situation from.
Yes, because it's the 18th or 17th.
Did Rodney tell you that?
It's the 17th century. So how is this blockade affecting you, and how does it make you feel, Jack?
Well, I am a fisherman, and it's been affecting me pretty hard. But it's shown me a lot about life. All the twists and turns it has.
Exactly, Jack.
Good things can happen, bad things can happen.
And what about your family? How are you feeding them?
I'm not ready for that, but I'm so sorry because I can't put food on the table because this blockade, big deal. They're having problems with us, we're having problems with them.
And what about quartering the British and feeding them too? How does this make you feel?
Quartering the British? What are you talking about? See, I missed last week's assembly, so I didn't get the memo.
You're supposed to.
Quartering?
The British are supposed to. The troops are supposed to be in your house, and you're supposed to feed them. Have you got no notification?
No, I haven't got any. I missed a meeting last week. Oh my god.
Okay then. So how about your other fishing?
I'm soloist.
So.
I go alone.
Wait a minute.
On these long and hard voyages.
But your friends are starving because of the blockade. They're unable to fish.
My friends. No,
Okay,
they're not my friends.
Okay, but
See, I'm
still.
a family man. I care about my family. Family first.
So what are you gonna do now that you're unable to fish?
I'm still able to fish. They're just not gonna know about it.
Oh yeah, you're gonna smuggle fish in. Okay. Thank you, Jack Johnson, for this interview.
Thank you.
Any additional words?
Stranger.
You're welcome. Here we have John Muhammad Ali Jackson, a merchant.
No, it's Mohammed.
Oh, okay then, Muhammad.
No, call me Ali.
Okay, Ali.
Never mind, John.
Ah! Okay, how does the blockade affect you and your family?
What's a blockade?
The Boston Harbor blockade?
Oh, the one off Boston.
Yeah.
Well, my friends from Mecca have no clue where that is. But they're still my friends.
But you live in Boston. You know the ships are right outside of your house as we speak?
Yeah, I'm blockaded in here. What was
Okay.
the question again?
How does the blockade affect you and your family?
Well, it hurts and helps me. We have learned how to smuggle and had great success in selling Indian clothing to the colonists. Don't know why. And weapons to the Indians. Smuggled through the black market.
Okay, hypothetically, what would happen if the black market didn't exist?
There would be a white market.
Okay, but if you had no markets like you do now, wouldn't your family go starving because you can't sell the items in the market?
Yeah, my family would starve, but I would be fine.
That's very selfish of you. Thank you for your time.
By the way, some freaks are dressed as Indians and throwing stuff off that boat over there. Why don't you waste their time too?
What? The following interview is with Professor Torres, a professor at Harvard teaching American history. He has a PhD in the subject and would like to give us his opinion and facts. Professor Torres, what can you tell us about the effects of the Boston Harbor blockade?
Well, the blockade affected everyone in the colonies, especially Boston. Because it's a harbor city, Boston's economy depended on its harbor, and without it, many went jobless.
What about the merchants and fishermen?
Because of navigational acts, the colonies could only trade with British, and when England cut Boston off, the merchants had no markets and they became poor. The fishermen couldn't exit the harbors, so they couldn't fish.
Cut off from the harbor, anxiety rose. Many feared they would starve and die. But the other colonies decided to support Boston, even though the colonies never really got along. Virginia prayed for the Bostonians. Connecticut sent money, South Carolina sent rice, and New York sent sheep. What did the other colonies do, and how did the blockade affect them?
Well, first of all, the blockade was the start of the colonial unification. The hostile colonies were now sending aid to Boston, Massachusetts. They sent supplies such as food and water. The blockade made Boston a martyr, engaging the colonies to act. The following interview is with James Smith, a resident of Virginia, giving us his opinion on the subject.
James Smith, how does the blockade in Boston make you feel?
It makes me feel kind of upset. I don't think the British were justified in doing what they did there. They were taxing us without our permission, and I also feel sorry for the Bostonians.
How are you, as a resident of Virginia, helping the Bostonians?
Well, I pray for them, and I also package the supply crates in which we put the supplies in.
Do you think the colonies are becoming more supportive of each other?
Maybe. I don't really know that. In February 1775, Britain passed conciliatory resolution, which ended taxation for the colonies as long as they provide imperial defense and upkeep for the officers. The Tea Act was repealed by the Taxation of the Colonies Acts of 1778. The Boston Tea Party sparked resistance against the tyrannical British Empire. When the colonies worked together to support Boston, they showed us that they are becoming more closer. Soon the colonies would have to work together to defeat the British. However, 3 years after the hardships of the Boston Harbor blockade, the first shots were fired. The American Revolution began. And even though the future looked bleak for the colonists, they fought to find this great country of America.
Sounded forth the trumpet that shall never sound retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on.
The fisherman couldn't. What the heck is that? Exit the harbor.
Okay, just keep on going. I heard.
The fishermen couldn't exit the harbor, so they couldn't fish.
That's it?
Yeah. There's the only thing there. And I was like, what? That's the only thing I put down.
I think Dom explained it pretty well.
What they did there. They're taxing us without our permission, and I also feel sorry for them. Okay, that's wrong. Fighting, doing what they did there.
How are you?
They were taxing. Okay.
How does the blockade affect you and your family?
What's a blockade?
The Boston Harbor blockade?
Oh, the one off Boston?
Yeah.
Well, my friends from Mecca have no clue.
How does a blockade affect you and your family?
Well, it hurts and helps. We have learned how to smuggle and have had great success in smuggling and have had great success in Indian clothing, selling Indian clothing to colonists.